Have you ever seen any such thing as a worldwide election? No, there have not been any global elections or referendums which have included every living person on Earth. That means there is no such thing as a global government, at least so far. For a government to be legitimate, it has to show a consenting constituency. Each constituent, each person, has to demonstrate willingness to be subject to the jurisdiction. Usually a national, regional, or local government maintains its legitimacy by holding elections, by allowing people to choose something. They foster the appearance of public consent for the government. We can rule over you because we let you vote. This idea gets more ridiculous the more you look at it. It is like a gas station which is owned by two partners, and they let you vote on which partner gets to run the gas station. Then, because you voted on that, they can tell you when you must buy gas, and how much gas you must buy, and how you need to behave when you are buying gas. This is the way our governments now act. But the United Nations is not a government. It's a private club. The World Health Organization is a private club. The World Economic Forum is a private club. These are not governments or any kind of authorities. These are clubs where rich people talk about how to control, exploit, and plunder general populations and global markets. But just imagine if they tried to form a world government and decided to have an election. What would that mean? That would mean nothing unless we were stupid enough to show up and vote. You see, voting is a trick. It is a trap. To you, voting seems like a chance to make a choice. To the central elite, your vote means something very different. When you show up and vote, you are affirming the legitimacy of whatever they call government. By voting, you are declaring and agreeing that the organization sponsoring the voting is a legitimate body which, after you vote, will have the privilege of ruling over you as if you had given up every fiber of your own self-determination. It doesn't matter if you voted black or white, red or blue, up or down. Whoever organized the election becomes your ruler. The reason this is now such a problem is that the nature of voting has changed. Voting used to be a way for you to determine important things about your government. That is no longer the case. Voting no longer has any effect on public policy or government. Voting now functions only in a minimal way to periodically legitimize government and create an illusion of popular support. It gives billionaires, lifetime bureaucrats, and politicians the evidence they need to say that you want them to rule you. When you vote, as they see it, you are asking someone else to make decisions for you, to have command over you, to be in charge of you and everything else. The act of voting is now functioning as your abdication of rights and responsibilities to a central cabal of would-be dictators, bullies, pirates, and heavily funded secret agencies. When you vote, they say, look, they elected me, so I am in charge now. So that is the subtle change that has been taking place in voting over the last 50 or 100 years. It used to be a way to set up government as you want, to accomplish your choices and decisions. And now it is just a way to identify who gets to be in charge and who gets to make all the choices and decisions centrally, unilaterally, without any further consultation with the public. It is a big box of power and money that gets handed to the people who legitimize themselves with your participation in the election. Even national, state, and local elections are now viewed this way. We protest, we sign petitions, we call our elected representatives, and none of that has any effect any longer, and we all know this. When we vote, what we hear back is, you voted for me, so you are stuck with whatever I decide to do. And I don't even have to tell you what I'm doing. It was a mistake to believe that voting was an adequate mechanism to protect our rights and promote social harmony and prosperity. Our forefathers warned us of this in clear language. So there is no longer any doubt that it would be a very serious mistake to vote in a global referendum of any kind. It would give very elite and wealthy power brokers exactly the evidence they need to claim the existence of a world government, a legitimized new world order that can dictate to nations, to cities, to people directly as a government with policies that serve globalist agendas, perhaps even depopulation policies of genocide, forced injections, destruction of supply chains, commerce, and jobs to cover up the collapse of their currency and debt. Voting now functions as a blank check to total strangers to not only do whatever they want, but do whatever they want to us. In other words, our voting, our displays of obedience and loyalty would give central powers the excuse to execute whatever worldwide crimes and programs would satisfy the desires of those who occupy the upper positions in the new central global authority. The idea of global government is not about having better government. It is about having an additional layer of government, a vertically integrated power structure that extends higher and farther than the national sovereign governments. I live in an area where there is no city government. I am in what is called an unincorporated region of a county, so I am under a national, state, and county government, but I do not have a city government where I live, and the higher level of freedom is very noticeable in such an area. There are no parking meters, fewer inspections, fewer encounters with government and bureaucrats, fewer fees, fines, and taxes. One less government makes a huge difference in the quality of life from the standpoint of freedom and individual self-determination. So however many governments you have right now, city, county, state, national, if another government were to show up, I promise you that you would feel it and it would cost you. Most people do not realize that government is the most expensive thing you have. It costs you more than your house, your car, food, clothing, transportation, and healthcare combined. Governments take your money, your property, and your liberty. That is what governments do. When you vote, you are saying that you think that is okay. You are pledging to not just recognize, but to obey whatever you have voted for, and to obey whatever system asked you to vote. When you vote, you are saying, I am a member of this thing. And when that thing has members, it becomes real. It becomes legitimate, powerful, rich, and it never goes away because it likes its power. When you vote, when you fill out an application, when you get an ID card, these are the times that you hand over your power to something. You give up your right to act and choose and control your own life in many different ways by doing things that just seem like innocent interactions with government. So when you hear people talk about global government, a new world order, all of us must instantly respond by saying, no, that is not my government. That is not a real government, and I'm not a member of whatever that is. I am not a citizen of that. I am not a voter or taxpayer of that. And any authority that thing is claiming is not legitimate and does not apply to me. We really have no other choice other than to take those positions, because to do anything else, to simply remain silent, we are recruited and subscribed as supporters, members, servants to yet another collective, another layer of government, and another structure of control, taxation, and enforcement. There are people who want to put you in those boxes, and when you vote, they are able to do that. If you just remain silent, they are able to do that. The simple act of failing to claim rights and liberties causes those rights and liberties to be taken away. Here is how voting should work. We should never vote for anything that we do not truly love, admire, and want. We should never vote for anything that ignores us, abuses us, costs us too much, or that acts in secret and does not allow us to scrutinize, review, and control its performance. Do you have command of your government? If not, then do not vote for it. Does it listen to you? If not, then do not vote for it. Can you see and control what it is doing? If not, then do not vote for it and do not participate in the election. When you agree to vote, that is when they own you. What you vote for means nothing. When you vote, it turns you into the property of something else. When we vote for something, We must make sure it is ours. We can control it. We can watch every part of it operate for us. We can decide whether or not to fund it. And when it does not operate the way we want, we can change it. It must be something we control. That is why we need to question whether we should even be voting in national elections, because this gives our government the authority to enter international contracts and treaties, and those treaties can require our government to violate our Constitution. We never intended our vote to destroy our Constitution, but that's what it does. By foolishly entering into international treaties, our government can establish a world government and override our Constitution, and they will try and claim this is legitimate because we voted nationally. It is highly questionable, with the current level of disconnect between our government bodies and ourselves, whether we should be voting for anything at all currently. There was a lot of talk about immigration recently, where one country is committing oppression and people are fleeing to another country. With a global government, you have nowhere to go if your government becomes oppressive. A global government is a monopoly that uses force and violence against you. It is pretty obvious that most of us will not have any clout in any global government. So it is very important that we never vote for such a thing, never support such a thing, never allow such a thing to presume it has authority over us. Nowadays, we not only have to be careful what we vote for, but we also have to be careful what we vote in, what our vote associates us with, and how our simple act of voting empowers a dark and unaccountable system that we do not intend to empower. So the natural question is, if we do not vote, then what do we do to have a stable civic and social organization? We need to find something better, because we now know that what we have doesn't work. It worked for a while, but like every other central authority in history, it became stale, corrupt, expensive, dysfunctional. It was taken over by enough bad people and enough good people doing bad things and enough good people doing nothing that it no longer works. Maybe we need a system where there is not so much voting. The term majority rule has the word rule in it. Maybe we don't need to be ruled. Maybe we can be treated like adults and make our own decisions. There are other ways to deal with crime, foreign affairs, social services. There are far better ways than to establish a monolithic central power structure that operates in secret and uses violence to force compliance, and yet is never held accountable when it uses violence wrongly. We do have a problem, and now we can see why. We look at what our governments do, what they get away with, what they do not tell us about what they do, how the press can no longer even access the centers of power or report any mistake or wrongdoing of any government or large corporation. Obviously, if something is going to work, it is going to have to be very different. There is talk of parallel systems, where we simply disregard our current corrupt, dysfunctional systems and create our own separate, self-sustained parallel systems, which can then eventually eclipse the old stale and corrupt ones. It is never too soon to start creating those parallel systems. If we are not voting, then how do we organize society? We do that by individually protecting our own rights, individually producing something to earn a living and create value for society without penalty, surveillance, or taxation, and forming trusted networks with people who understand that central control does not work. Central control is based on the initiation of violence to coerce compliance. That does not create the type of society we need. We can clearly see this now. So we will need a very different system that we control, and that we will always control by and for ourselves. Whatever we imagine or try, it is nearly certain that we can do better than what we have right now. One thing has been shown to be perfectly true, and that is, we are no longer making anything better by voting.